9/11 reroutes. The 9/11 reroutes were the cause of the Twin Towers falling, and each week a service would change. For example, the one train was only limited to 14th Street at first, but as the weeks went on, the 3 train was later restricted to 14th Street with the 1 train going to New Lots. And those are the type of changes that would have happened with the 9/11 reroutes. There's a lot of changes that happened, and I honestly don't have the time right now to go over every single change, so we're going to go on to the next entry. Unused subway roll signs. There are roll signs on the R62/A equipment that has been several unused roll signs, such as a green 8 train, a green 10 train, a purple 11 train, a green 12 train, and a red 13 train. These are theorized to be express variants of certain lines but were scrapped in favor of using diamonds on the roll signs. There's also another theory that these were skip-stop variants if the MTA ever wanted to put skip-stop service on a certain line. Bowery/Canal Street abandoned platforms. Basically, these stations had each basically another set of island platforms that was meant for BMT trains. Of course, the Christie Street connection rendered these platforms useless, but they still operated. However, Canal Street closed the extra island platform in 1996, and Bowery was and the extra platform at Bowery was closed in 2004. The unalive curve. There was a section of track on the 9th Avenue L that was pretty high. This section of track basically attracted certain people to unalive themselves off of it. Once the 9th Avenue L was demolished, the curve no longer existed. Intentionally making the R44 chime. This chime was intentionally made to sound like that, due to its previous chime being around 4 seconds long, which was too long for the MTA, thus giving us the iconic chime. The IND second system. This is basically the GigaChat of all transit concept maps. The IND second system had the 2nd Avenue subway, the Utica Avenue subway, and basically trains spreading out towards Queens and the Bronx. This map has so many things that I can't list them all. This map is indeed what I like to call the GigaChat of all New York City subway maps. Experimental local and express signs on the R62. I think this is referring to the LED signs that have the green circle and the red diamond indicating express and local services. Culver shuttle. Along 28th Street ran a shuttle that went to the lower level of 9th Avenue. The shuttle ran from Ditmas Avenue to the lower level of 9th Avenue. This shuttle was discontinued in the 70s and was demolished along with the other L's. A car coupler. So this is basically an automatic coupler which connects all the trains at once, which is pretty interesting. R46 LCD, Metro North Railroad, and Long Island Railroad programs. A YouTuber by the name of Sylvian caught an R46 with Metro North destinations. Now this could be because they wanted to see if R46s could be run on the Metro North. We really don't know why these programs exist on the R46 at all, since they are different companies, unless the MTA did want to convert the Metro North and the Long Island Railroad to subway, as subway lines, which at some point I believe was possible? I mean, it happened with the 5 train when it first started out. I think they took the one piece of the 5 train. I know it was formerly the New York and Boston Railroad or something like that. New York, Westchester and Boston Railroad or something like that. That was a company that they took a piece of the 5 train, basically. That current, I think, stretch from where the 5 splits off from 2, I think that is entirely like the railroad, or at least the former railroad before the MTA took that over and made it the 5 train. It's pretty interesting. Something similar could have happened with the Metro North and the Long Island Railroad, but they chose to still keep it up as commuter rail, which I would have liked a subway that basically took over. I would have preferred if they had like a subway that would have taken over the Metro North and the Long Island, since it would have been pretty interesting. But anyways, I've been blabbering on for way too long, so let's get to the next entry. The R44 speed test on Long Island Railroad tracks. Basically, the test showed that the R44 could reach 89 miles an hour, and apparently could accelerate more if it had more track. The R46 also probably ran on the Long Island Railroad tracks to see if the trains could run on the tracks, which explains why the R46 has Metro North and Long Island Railroad designations. The R44 probably also has them too. I mean, possibly they wanted to run it on the, that's another explanation too, that they wanted to run the R46 as basically a car type on the Metro North. That way they wouldn't have to spend on any like different car types on commuter rail and whatnot. That's why the R46 and the R44 like look so commuter rail style-ish, or have a combination of the both of commuter and metro, to see if that they could run it, which I wouldn't have been opposed to. I wouldn't have been opposed to that plan, to be completely honest with you here, but I have been blabbering on for too long again. So let's get to the real life money train, which is the money train that existed from 1951 to 2006, and it was for collecting fares from various stations around the subway system. It stopped at a room connected to the Transit Authority's office at 370 J Street. The money train was often seen as useless after the Metro car was introduced, but they kept it running until 2006. Fake buildings to cover up transit infrastructure. These buildings are also seen on the London Underground, but yes, they also do exist in New York City. These buildings are used for emergency exits and ventilation for the subway. Flags added because of 9/11. The flags were indeed added because of 9/11. There's not much else to say except that the buses also had flags on them too. The R44 flip dot. The R44 had a flip dot sign before they were upgraded with the iconic look they have now. They also had roll signs on the side of the trains instead of the digital ones. The Williamsburg bridge crash. Basically, a tired train operator was driving a J train and smacked into another train. The driver was killed and 54 people were injured. This all happened 4 years after the 1991 Union Square wreck, which led to timers being installed on the bridge. The 9 train's original concept. Basically, the 9 was supposed to use the middle track, and it never went off because the middle track was split into 2 sections, which would not be optimal for express service. The R62/R68 phantograms. Basically, the front of the R62 that had weird gates on it were actually folded in, and the same went in for the weird rails on the front of the R68. The South 4th Street subway. Apparently, this station had a shell built that was supposed to have provisions for a 6-track line, being a center port for the IND second system. There's no station that currently exists, and it only has incomplete features of a station. The R60A NTT chime. Basically, the R68s on the G were upgraded, and now they have LCD signs on top, just like all the new techs. Again, not much else to say. The R60A SEPSA/CRRC concepts. There were futuristic concepts for the R60A subway model that looked similar to the SOAC models. IRT pocket tracks. Pocket tracks were mentioned back in the Union Square wreck entry, but I never mentioned as to why they existed. They existed as storage tracks for the IRT and were also used as replacement tracks if the main line was being worked on, as seen in the Union Square wreck. The 2005 transit strike. Basically, the MTA and TWU Local 100 couldn't come to a deal that included retirement, pensions, and increased wages. The strike lasted from December 20th until December 22nd, when the MTA and TWU Local 100 came to an agreement. Service resumed as normal the next day. The 2014 R179 concept. Basically, the original R179 cars were scrapped because of the amount of cracks the train had. Similarly, the R44s also had this problem. The Fulton Street fantasy map. While I don't have any images or description of any sort of the map, I do remember seeing a Reddit post about it. I'll see if I can link the Reddit post in the description below for you guys to see if I can find it. It's been a while. Maybe I could do a deep dive while in the editing thingy and maybe find it. I don't know. This video is not going to be heavily edited at all because I have storage issues. So anyways, speaking of the map, it was installed at a subway station and it didn't have any color on it, but it was stated that the MTA apparently had made a fantasy map of the subway on their own, and it had a lot of weird decisions on it. Maybe I'll do a video on this map thingy because it's very interesting. What if the MTA had made their own little fantasy map, like what would it look like, and looking at what it is, it does not have a majority of what you would expect, and most of the subway lines are really weird. You'll see what I mean if you look down in the description or the image or whatnot. The R110B catching fire. Car 3006 caught fire at 181st Street, damaging it. Surprisingly, it was repaired and put back into the testing phase. Nobody knows how or why it caught fire. The R44 testing in Colorado. Basically, the R44 was tested at the Transportation Technology Center located in Colorado. My guess is that they tested the R44 in preparation for them to be put on a Staten Island railroad. I'd even go as far as to say that they tested the R44 to see how they would perform in a wide open terrain to put these trains on the Metro North and Long Island Railroad. I mean, that's a possibility, but who knows, honestly. The R46 accidentally sent down Jamaica. Apparently, there was an incident where an R46F train was sent down Queens Boulevard and the people complained about it for some reason. I'm not too sure if this entry is referring to the incident, to this specific incident, or something else. The Times Square shuttle fire. In 1964, the Times Square shuttle was automated, but some electrical problem happened with the train and it caught fire, ending automation on the subway system until CBTC came along. The R179 LIRR chime. Basically, people have pointed out that one of the R179 cars has an LIRR chime. For those wondering what car it is, it's car 3185. Double track Franklin Avenue shuttle. The Franklin Avenue shuttle used to be double tracked because it was once part of the BRT, which had other trains run through the route of the current shuttle service. The double track portion was removed during the rehabilitation of the line. The Utica Avenue subway provisions. This could be referring to two things. One is that the IRT Utica Avenue station had provisions for if the IRT Utica Avenue line was built, or this could connect to the South 4th Street plan of a subway being built underneath Utica Avenue from the South 4th Street line. There might have been provisions for the IND Utica Avenue line, if there are any. I'm not too sure. I'm pretty sure it's the IRT one, but honestly, there's rarely any provisions that you could really see. Although there are some reported. I mean, it really depends, because there's two ways you could really look at it. You could look at it as the IND's expansion of the Utica Avenue subway, or you could look at it as the IRT's expansion. But anyways, the R10 modernization concept. In 1975, there was an attempt to have the R10 be modernized with AC and modern interiors, but only one was ever made and scrapped in 1980. There was a light refurbishment in 1987, but the cars were replaced by the R60A. The initial start of the concept had the R42 font on the roll signs, apparently, and that's the only information that we have of the car type. The Eastern Parkway provisions. Basically, it was a plan that 36th Street was to have a spur of some kind connecting it to Broadway Junction, and there have been apparently provisions for this plan. I have no idea what this is even talking about. This is interesting, but at the same time, like, it's highly unlikely. The R16 modernization concept. Apparently, car 6429 was rebuilt with a new front end, large picture windows, and new doors, and was a prototype car for a complete rebuilding of the fleet, which would have had modern interiors and air conditioning. This car was built in 1979 and eventually got scrapped in 1979 too. So that's the end of part 2.